They called him the Ghost of Brooklyn, because if you saw him coming, you were already dead. Salvatore Moretti didn't fear bullets, federal indictments, or rival families. He feared nothing, until a 6-year-old girl in a dirty pink raincoat stood in front of his armored convoy and screamed 5 words that froze the blood of the most dangerous men in New York. "Wait, don't start your cars!" What Salvatore found under the chassis that rainy Tuesday wasn't just a weapon. It was a ghost from a past he thought he'd buried, and a love he didn't know he was fighting for. This is the story of how a ruthless kingpin lost his heart to save his life. The rain in New York doesn't wash things clean, it just makes the grime slicker. It was a Tuesday in November, the kind of day that feels like twilight even at noon. Outside the Vesuvio Steakhouse on 54th Street, 3 black Cadillac Escalades were idling, their exhaust pipes puffing white clouds into the freezing air. Salvatore Sal Moretti buttoned his cashmere overcoat, stepping out of the restaurant's heavy oak doors. At 36, Sal was the capo dei capi of the Moretti crime family, a position inherited by blood and kept by iron. He didn't look like the mobsters in the movies. There were no tracksuits or gold chains. He wore tailored Tom Ford suits, spoke with the diction of a university professor, and moved with the lethal efficiency of a panther. "Boss, we're running 10 minutes behind for the sit-down with the Russos," grunted Rocco, his head of security. Rocco was a mountain of a man, an ex-Marine with a scar running from his ear to his jawline. He held the umbrella over Sal's head, his other hand hovering near the Glock 19, holstered beneath his jacket. "Let Dominic Russo wait," Sal said, his voice a low baritone that cut through the city noise. "Anxiety makes men make mistakes. I want him sweating when we walk in." The entourage moved in a phalanx, 6 men, all armed, all scanning the perimeter. The streets were relatively empty, save for a few delivery trucks and pedestrians huddled against the wind. It was a standard extraction. Walk to the car, get in, disappear. They had done it 1,000 times. Sal reached for the door handle of the middle vehicle, the Beast. It was plated with B7 level armor, capable of withstanding sniper fire and grenades. He was about to pull the handle when a splash of color caught his peripheral vision. It was pink, bright, bubblegum pink. "Wait, don't start your cars!" The voice was high-pitched, trembling, but loud enough to echo off the brick walls of the alley. In an instant, the atmosphere shifted from routine to combat-ready. 6 guns were drawn simultaneously. Rocco shoved Sal against the body of the SUV, shielding him with his massive frame. "Contact left! Eyes up!" Rocco barked. Sal pushed Rocco's arm down gently but firmly. He peered around his bodyguard's shoulder. Standing in the middle of the wet pavement, no more than 20 feet away, was a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 6 or 7 years old. She was wearing a muddy pink raincoat that was a size too big, yellow rain boots, and she was clutching a tattered teddy bear that was missing an eye. Her hair, soaked and matted, clung to her forehead. She was shaking, not just from the cold, but from terror. "Hold fire," Sal ordered, his voice icy calm. "It's a child." "Boss, it could be a setup," warned Davies, another enforcer, scanning the rooftops. "Decoy. Use the kid to stall us, then hit us from the windows." "I said hold," Sal repeated. He stepped away from the car, moving into the open rain. "Sal, don't!" Rocco hissed. Sal ignored him. He walked slowly toward the girl, his hands visible. He saw the way her eyes darted from the guns to his face. They were strikingly blue, the color of a gas flame. He felt a weird, sudden jolt in his chest, a sense of déjà vu he couldn't place. "You're brave," Sal said, stopping 5 feet from her. He knelt down, disregarding the mud ruining his $2,000 trousers. You know you shouldn't yell at men with guns, Piccola? The girl sniffled, wiping her nose on her sleeve. My mummy said... She said if I see the black cars with the flags, I have to stop them. Sal frowned. His cars didn't have flags, but then he looked at the front bumper of the lead SUV. There was a tiny magnetic Italian flag decal his driver, Paulie, had put on as a joke after the World Cup. It was barely visible. Your mummy told you that? Sal asked, his eyes narrowing. Where is your mummy? She's hiding, the girl whispered. She took a step closer, lowering her voice as if sharing a state secret. She saw the bad man, the man with the snake on his neck. Sal's blood ran cold. The snake tattoo, a cobra coiling around a dagger. That was the signature ink of the Los Diablos cartel hitmen, specifically a freelancer named Mateo, the Viper. Vega. But Vega was supposed to be in Mexico. What did the bad man do? Sal asked softly. He went under your car, the girl said, pointing a trembling finger at the beast. He put a box there. It has a red light. Beep. 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 The silence that followed was louder than the city traffic. Sal stood up slowly, his face hardening into a mask of stone. He looked back at Rocco. Check the undercarriage. Now. Rocco didn't ask questions. He signaled Davies and Paulie. They produced an inspection mirror on a telescopic pole, standard equipment they usually used before leaving the garage, not in the middle of a street. Everyone back! Rocco yelled. Clear the sidewalk. Sal didn't move. He stayed focused on the girl. What's your name? Sophie, she whispered. Sophie, Sal repeated. It sounded like a prayer. Sophie, I need you to run. Go to that store over there. He pointed to a bodega across the street. And wait behind the counter. Can you do that? But my mummy. I will find your mummy. Go. As Sophie scampered across the street, Rocco's voice cut through the air, tight with urgency. Boss, we got a positive. It's a C4 brick rigged to the ignition starter. Mercury switch. If we had turned the key, or even slammed the door too hard. Game over. Sal felt a cold sweat prickle the back of his neck. It wasn't fear of death. He had accepted that long ago. It was the violation. Someone had gotten close. Someone knew his schedule. Disarm it? Sal asked. Negative, Davies said, sliding out from under the car, his face pale. It's got a secondary timer. It's counting down. We have less than 2 minutes. Leave the cars, Sal commanded instantly. We move on foot. Spread out. Get into the alleyways. As his men began to scramble, securing the perimeter and redirecting civilians, Sal looked toward the alley where Sophie had emerged. He couldn't just leave. If Vega was here, and the mother was a witness, they were loose ends. And Sal Moretti didn't leave loose ends, especially not ones that saved his life. He ran toward the mouth of the alley. It was a narrow, garbage-strewn passage between the steakhouse and a derelict electronics store. Mummy? Sal called out. He drew his own weapon now, a custom Sig Sauer P226. There was a rustle behind a dumpster. A woman emerged. She was holding a tire iron, her knuckles white. When she stepped into the dim light, Sal stopped dead in his tracks. The world, the bomb, the rain, it all faded. She was older than he remembered, maybe 32 now. Her hair, once a pristine blonde, was dyed a dark chestnut and chopped short in a bob. She wore a waitress uniform from a diner he didn't recognize, covered by a cheap denim jacket. But those eyes, the same gas flame blue as the girl's. Claire, Sal breathed. Claire Evans dropped the tire iron. It clattered loudly against the wet asphalt. She looked terrified, but also defiant. Salvatore, she said, her voice cracking. I told her not to come out. I told her... Claire, you're supposed to be in Paris, Sal said, his mind reeling. 6 years ago, he had given her a plane ticket and an envelope with $50,000. He had sent her away to protect her from his life. He had broken her heart to save her soul. I didn't go, she said. I couldn't. Why? Before she could answer, a deafening explosion ripped through the street behind them. Boom! The shockwave knocked Sal forward. He tackled Claire, driving her into the brick wall of the alley, shielding her body with his. The ground shook. Car alarms screamed in a dissonant chorus. The heat from the fireball washed over the alley entrance, followed by the smell of burning rubber and gasoline. The beast was gone. Debris rained down, shards of glass, twisted metal, burning upholstery. Sal held her there for a moment, pressing her face into his chest. He could feel her heart hammering against his ribs, perfectly in sync with his own. "Are you hit?" he demanded, pulling back to check her. I don't think so," she stammered, coughing in the acrid smoke. "Sophie. Where is Sophie?" "She's safe, across the street," Sal said. He grabbed her arm, his grip bruising. "We have to move. Whoever planted that is watching. They want to see if I burned." "Sal, I can't go with you," Claire pleaded, trying to pull away. "You don't understand. I understand that you just saved my life, and now someone is trying to kill us both," Sal growled. "You're coming with me, and you're going to tell me why a hitman from the Tijuana cartel is planting bombs on my car, and why my ex-girlfriend from 6 years ago is watching from a dumpster." He dragged her toward the street, his eyes scanning the chaos. Through the smoke, he saw Rocco waving frantically from the corner. "Sophie!" Claire screamed, spotting her daughter in the doorway of the bodega, safe but crying. Sal scooped Claire up as they ran across the shattered glass of the street. He signaled to Rocco. "Get the backup extract, now! We have 2 civilians!" "2?" Rocco yelled over the noise. "Family," Sal said. Rocco's eyes widened, but he nodded. He spoke into his wrist mic. "Bring the van around back. Package is secure. We are taking heat." As they bundled Sophie and Claire into the back of a nondescript plumbing van that served as their emergency getaway, Sal looked back at the burning wreckage of his convoy. The bomb wasn't just an assassination attempt. It was a message. And the fact that Claire was here, that she had seen it. He looked at the little girl, Sophie, who was now clinging to Claire. He looked at Sophie's eyes. Then he looked at her nose, a small, distinct button nose. The same nose his mother had in all the old family photos. Sal did the math. Claire left 6 years ago. Sophie was 6. The realization hit him harder than the explosion. He stared at Claire. She looked away, biting her lip. "Claire," Sal whispered, the danger outside forgotten for a second. "Is she—" Claire looked up, tears streaming down her face, mixed with soot. "I wanted to tell you, but you sent me away, Sal. You said this life was too dangerous for anyone you loved." Sal looked at the burning street, then at the daughter he never knew he had. "It still is," he said grimly. "And now, you're right in the middle of it." The plumbing van was actually a mobile command center. The interior was lined with Kevlar and soundproofing. Rocco sat in the front passenger seat, barking orders into a secure phone, coordinating the cleanup and spinning the narrative to the press. In the back, the silence was suffocating. Sal sat opposite Claire and Sophie. Sophie had fallen asleep, the adrenaline crash knocking her out cold. Her head rested on Claire's lap. "The cartel?" Sal asked, breaking the silence. He poured a glass of water from a small fridge and handed it to Claire. Claire took it, her hands still shaking. "I wait tables at Gino's in Little Italy. It's a dive. Nobody important goes there." "I know it," Sal said. "It was a place low-level thugs went to feel like wise guys. 3 days ago, 2 men came in. One had the snake tattoo. They were arguing. They didn't think the waitress was listening. Claire took a sip of water. They mentioned your name. They mentioned Tuesday. The Vesuvio. Why didn't you go to the police? Claire let out a bitter laugh. The police? Sal, half the precinct is on your payroll, and the other half is on the Russos. Who was I supposed to trust? If I went to the cops, they would have leaked my name. Vega would have cut my throat before I signed the statement. So you came to find me yourself. I came to warn you. I didn't plan on this. She gestured to the van. I just wanted to drop a note on your windshield and leave. But there were too many guards. Then I saw Vega slide under the car. Sal leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. You risked your life. Why? After I sent you away? Claire looked down at Sophie, stroking her daughter's hair. Because despite everything, Sal, I couldn't let Sophie's father die without ever knowing she existed. Sal closed his eyes. The confirmation was like a physical blow. He reached out, hesitating, then gently touched Sophie's small hand. It was warm. Real. Does she know? Sal asked. No. She knows her daddy is a businessman who travels a lot. I didn't want her to know her daddy is the ghost of Brooklyn. Smart, Sal murmured. The van slowed down, making a series of sharp turns. They were entering the Vault, a safe house in a converted warehouse in the Navy Yard. It was off the books. No digital footprint. We're here, Rocco announced. Boss, we have a problem, though. What now? We ran the surveillance footage from the street before the blast. We traced Vega's path, Rocco said, turning around, his face grim. He didn't just walk up to the car. He had clearance. Clearance? Sal asked, his voice dropping. The perimeter alarm was disabled for 30 seconds. The only people with the codes to override that system are me, you, and Davies. Sal's eyes snapped to the rear-view monitor. Davies was in the chase car behind them. Davies? Sal questioned. Davies had been with the family for 10 years. He was Sal's godson. The logs don't lie, boss. His keycard swiped the jammer off right before Vega made his move. Sal sat back, his jaw tightening. Betrayal was the only constant in his life. But Davies? That cut deep. Bring him in, Sal said, quietly. I don't want a scene in front of the girl. What are you going to do? Claire asked, fear returning to her eyes. I'm going to ask him why he sold me out, Sal said calmly, and then I'm going to make sure he never does it again. The Vault was less of a home and more of a fortress buried inside a defunct textile factory in the Brooklyn Navy Yard. It smelled of hydraulic fluid and cold concrete. The main floor was an open space filled with crates, while a steel staircase led up to a glass-walled office and a small living quarter. Sal watched as Rocco ushered Claire and a sleeping Sophie into the upstairs quarters. He waited until the heavy steel door clicked shut, sealing them off from the violence that was about to happen below. Bring him, Sal said, his voice devoid of emotion. 2 of Sal's enforcers dragged Davies in from the rear loading dock. Davies wasn't fighting. He looked sick, his skin the color of wet dough. He knew the rules. He knew the penalty. They threw him onto a wooden chair in the center of the warehouse floor. Rocco zip-tied his hands behind the backrest. Sal walked over to a workbench and picked up a heavy wrench, weighing it in his hand. He didn't look at Davies. He looked at the tool. 10 years, Davies, Sal said softly. You were 22 when I pulled you out of that gambling debt in Atlantic City. I paid your mother's hospital bills. I put you through school. Sal, please, Davies choked out, tears streaming down his face. I didn't have a choice. There is always a choice, Sal said, turning around. His eyes were dead. You disabled the perimeter. You let a cartel hitman put a bomb under the seat where I sit. If that little girl hadn't walked into the street, I'd be missed right now, and so would Rocco. They have Maria, Davies blurted out. Sal paused. Maria was Davies's younger sister. She was a civilian, a nurse at St. Jude's. Innocent. Who has her? Sal asked, stepping closer. Russo, Davies wept. Dominic Russo. He approached me a week ago. He showed me a video of Maria walking to her car, then a video of her inside her apartment. He said, if I didn't drop the shields for just 1 minute, they would kill her slowly. They wanted Vega to do it so it looked like the cartel, to start a war between you and the Mexicans, while Russo took over the territory. Sal stared at Davies. The betrayal still stung, but the context changed the flavor of it. It wasn't greed, it was fear. You should have come to me, Sal said, his voice hard but slightly less icy. I would have burned the city down to find her. I couldn't risk it, Sal. They said they were watching me. They said if I spoke to you, she was dead. Sal looked at Rocco. Is this verified? Rocco checked his tablet. I'm pinging Maria's phone now. It's off. Her work says she didn't show up for her shift this morning. Sal dropped the wrench. It clanged loudly against the concrete floor. He walked up to Davies and grabbed him by the face, squeezing his jaw. You are a fool, Davies. You traded my life for hers, and now we are likely all dead because of it. Russo won't let her go. You're a loose end. She's a loose end. I know, Davies whispered, defeated. Just kill me, Sal. Do it. But please, send someone for Maria. Sal released him. He turned to Rocco. Cut him loose. Rocco hesitated. Boss? I said cut him loose. Give him a weapon. Davies looked up, bewildered, as Rocco sliced the zip ties with a combat knife. Rubbing his raw wrists, Davies looked at Sal with wide eyes. You're not going to kill me? Not today, Sal said, adjusting his cuffs. You made a mistake, but you did it for family. I can't kill a man for that. Not today. But you are going to fix this. You are going to help me kill Dominic Russo, and we are going to get your sister back. If you betray me again, I won't kill you. I will let Rocco have you. Do you understand? Davies nodded frantically. Yes, boss. Thank you. Thank you. Sal turned away, looking up at the glass office where Claire was. Rocco, get the team ready. We need to find where Russo is holding the girl, and we need to find out where Vega went. Sal climbed the stairs to the living quarters. He needed to check on his own family. When he entered the room, the atmosphere changed instantly. The industrial harshness was replaced by a soft lamplight. Claire was sitting on the edge of a leather sofa, watching Sophie, who was now awake and eating a granola bar from the emergency rations. Sophie looked up as Sal entered. She stopped chewing. Her blue eyes, his eyes, widened. Are you the boss of the cars? Sophie asked. Sal stopped. He felt more nervous now than he had facing the bomb. He cleared his throat. I suppose I am. Is the granola bar okay? I'm afraid we don't have pizza. Sophie nodded solemnly. It's chocolate chip. That's good. Claire stood up, crossing her arms. She looked exhausted, but fierce. Sal, what is happening down there? I heard shouting. Business, Sal said dismissively. We are safe for now. This place is a fortress. For now? Claire pressed. Sal, that man, Vega, he saw us. He saw Sophie. I know. Sal walked over to the window, peering out through the blinds at the rainy shipyard. That creates a complication. Russo, the man who hired him, doesn't leave witnesses. He thinks I'm dead. When the news breaks that I survived, he will panic. He will send everything he has. So we need to leave, Claire said. No, Leaving exposes us. We stay here until tonight. My men are locating Russo. We strike first. We cut the head off the snake." Sal turned back to look at Sophie. She was holding the one-eyed teddy bear. "What's his name?" Sal asked, gesturing to the bear. "Mr. Buttons," Sophie said. "But he lost a button." Sal sat down on the coffee table, bringing himself to her eye level. He hesitated, then reached out and gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "Mr. Buttons is a survivor. Like you." Sophie looked at him with a child's devastating honesty. "Mummy says you knew me when I was a baby." Sal looked up at Claire. She held his gaze, her expression unreadable. I knew your mummy," Sal said carefully. "And I am very happy to meet you, Sophie. I am going to make sure that no bad men ever scare you again. Do you believe me?" Sophie studied his face. Kids and dogs, Sal knew, could always smell a liar. "Okay," she whispered. "But you have to fix your car." Sal chuckled, a dry, rusty sound he hadn't made in years. "Deal." Suddenly, the red emergency light in the corner of the room began to flash silently. Sal's earpiece crackled. It was Rocco. "Boss, we have bogies. Multiple SUVs breaching the perimeter gate. They didn't even slow down for the checkpoint. They're heavy. It's a hit squad." Sal stood up, his face shifting instantly from father to warlord. "How did they find us?" Sal barked into the mic. "I don't know, but they are here. At least 20 shooters. They have tactical gear. It's Vega." Sal looked at Claire. "Get in the bathroom. Put Sophie in the bathtub and cover her with the cushions. Do not come out until I open the door. Do you understand?" "Sal, go!" he roared. As Claire rushed Sophie into the bathroom, Sal drew his Sig Sauer. He moved to the door of the office, looking down into the warehouse. The bay doors at the far end exploded inward. The explosion blew the steel roller doors off their tracks, sending sheet metal spinning across the concrete floor like guillotine blades. Smoke billowed in, followed immediately by the staccato crack, crack, crack of suppressed assault rifles. "Contact front!" Rocco screamed from behind a crate. Sal's men, seasoned veterans, returned fire instantly. The warehouse erupted into a cacophony of noise. Bullets sparked off the steel beams and chewed into the wooden crates. Sal stayed on the high ground, using the steel railing of the balcony as cover. He spotted a figure moving through the smoke, tall, lithe, moving with a terrifying fluidity. Vega. The hitman wasn't hiding. He was advancing, firing a modified AK-47 with one hand, suppressing the defenders while his team flanked. "Rocco, right flank! They're trying to circle the stairs!" Sal yelled, firing 2 shots. One of the attackers dropped, clutching his throat. "I see him!" Rocco shouted, unleashing a burst from his submachine gun. Down on the floor, Davies was fighting like a man possessed. He had taken a position behind a forklift, firing a pistol with desperate accuracy. He was shouting something, a war cry fueled by guilt and rage. Sal scanned the room. There were too many of them. Russo must have emptied his entire payroll to support Vega's strike. They weren't trying to capture anyone. This was a liquidation. "Boss, we can't hold the floor!" Rocco yelled over the comms. "They're breaching the rear fire exit, too!" Sal looked at the bathroom door where Claire and Sophie were hiding. If the attackers got up the stairs, it was over. "Pull back to the stairs," Sal ordered. "Choke point! Don't let them up!" Sal moved to the top of the staircase, providing cover fire as his men retreated. He saw Davies running toward the stairs, but then Davies stopped. Davies looked up at the balcony. He locked eyes with Sal. "Go!" Sal yelled. "Get up here!" Davies shook his head. He pointed to a stack of propane tanks near the loading bay, the welding supply cache. "Davies, no!" Sal realized what he was doing. Davies turned and sprinted toward the enemy, firing wildly. He drew the fire of half a dozen gunmen. Bullets tore into the floor around him, but he kept running. "For Maria!" Davies screamed. He didn't make it to the tanks. A burst of fire from Vega caught him in the chest. Davies stumbled, fell to his knees, and coughed blood. But as he fell, he raised his pistol and fired one last shot. Not at the men, but at the valve of the nearest propane tank. A spark. Whoosh! A massive fireball erupted in the center of the warehouse, consuming the attackers near the door and blowing out the remaining windows. The concussive force knocked Sal backward onto the floor of the office. The shooting stopped for a brief second, the enemy stunned by the blast. "Rocco! Now!" Sal scrambled to his feet, ears ringing. "Get the girls! We use the roof exit." Rocco burst into the living quarters, kicking open the bathroom door. Claire was huddled over Sophie in the tub, shaking. "We're moving!" Rocco grabbed Claire's arm. "Sophie, hold on to your mum!" They ran. Sal took the lead, kicking open the roof access door. The cold rain hit them instantly, washing away the heat of the fire below. They were on the flat roof of the factory. Below, in the alley, Sal could see more headlights approaching. The zip line. Sal pointed to a thick steel cable running from their roof to the adjacent building, an old grain silo that led to the waterfront. It was an emergency escape route Sal had installed years ago, hoping never to use it. "I can't!" Claire screamed, looking at the 50-foot drop. "I can't do it with Sophie." "You don't have a choice." Sal grabbed a harness from the emergency box near the anchor point. He strapped Sophie to his own chest, securing the buckles with practiced speed. "Sophie, listen to me," Sal said, his face inches from hers. The rain was matting his hair to his skull. "Close your eyes and hold Mr. Buttons tight. Do not open them until I say so. I am going to fly us across, okay?" Sophie nodded, burying her face in his cashmere coat. Sal looked at Claire. "Rocco takes you. I take the girl. Go." Rocco hooked Claire to the line. She screamed as they shoved off, sliding rapidly across the gap, high above the alleyway. They hit the landing pad on the other side and rolled to safety. Sal hooked his carabiner onto the cable. He heard the roof door burst open behind him. "Moretti!" The voice was a snake's hiss. Sal turned. Mateo Vega stood in the doorway, his face singed from the explosion, his clothes smoking. He raised his rifle. Sal didn't hesitate. He pushed off the ledge, gravity taking him. As he zipped away, a bullet whizzed past his ear, nicking the cable. Sparks flew. Sal spun in the air, shielding Sophie with his body. He pulled his Sig Sauer while hanging from the wire and fired blindly back toward the roof. He hit the landing pad hard on the other side, rolling to absorb the impact so he wouldn't crush Sophie. Rocco was there, pulling him up. "Did he hit you?" Claire cried, grabbing Sophie. "I'm fine," Sal lied. His left shoulder was burning, a graze, maybe worse. "Move! The boat is at the dock!" They scrambled down the rusted ladder of the grain silo to the water's edge. A black speedboat was moored there, bobbing in the chop. As Rocco gunned the engines and the boat tore away from the dock, leaving a white wake in the dark water. Sal looked back at the burning warehouse. He had lost the vault. He had lost Davies. He was bleeding. But he looked at Sophie, who was shaken but unharmed, and Claire, who was gripping his hand so hard her nails dug into his skin. "Where do we go?" Claire asked, shouting over the roar of the engine. "They know everything. They have everything." Sal wiped the rain from his eyes. His expression had changed. The shock was gone. The fear was gone. What remained was a cold, calculating rage. "They don't have everything," Sal said. "They think they have me on the run. They think I'm hiding." He looked at the city skyline, glittering in the distance. "We aren't going to hide, Claire. Davies gave his life to buy us this time. I'm not going to waste it." "What are we going to do?" "We're going to the lion's den," Sal said. Dominic Russo is hosting his anniversary gala tonight at the Plaza Hotel. All the families will be there. The mayor, the press. "You're going to the Plaza?" Rocco yelled from the helm, looking back in disbelief. "Boss, that's suicide. You're outnumbered 100-1. "Exactly." Sal adjusted his coat, covering his bloodied shoulder. "They expect me to be in a hole in Jersey. They won't expect me to walk through the front door." He looked at Claire. "I need you to trust me one last time. Tonight, we end this. For good." The Plaza Hotel was a beacon of gold and crystal, a stark contrast to the blood-soaked concrete of the Navy Yard. It was the annual Italian-American Heritage Gala, a polite euphemism for the night the 5 families put down their guns, put on their tuxedos, and pretended to be legitimate businessmen. In the alley behind the hotel, the stolen speedboat idled. Sal climbed onto the pier, his left arm stiff and throbbing from the bullet graze. He had discarded his ruined coat. He was now in just his dress shirt, stained with blood and soot, and his suit trousers. "Rocco," Sal said, his voice low. "Take Claire and Sophie. Go to the safe deposit box at the Grand Central Terminal. Key 402. There are passports, cash. Go to the farmhouse in Vermont. Wait for my call." "No," Claire said, stepping out of the boat. She grabbed Sal's good arm. "I am not leaving you. Not again." "Claire, look at me," Sal said, gesturing to his bloodied shirt. "I am walking into a room full of wolves. I am going to end this, but I might not walk out." "Then we don't walk out together," Claire said fiercely. "But I'm not running while the father of my child fights for his life. Sophie goes with Rocco. I go with you." Sal looked at her. He saw the same steel he had fallen in love with 6 years ago. He turned to Rocco. "Take the girl. Secure Maria. If I'm not out in 30 minutes, burn it all down." Rocco nodded, his face grim. He picked up a sleeping Sophie. "It's been an honor, boss." As Rocco vanished into the shadows with his daughter, Sal took a deep breath. He tore a strip from his shirt sleeve and bound his wound tight. He looked at Claire. "Tuck your hair back," he said. "If we do this, we walk in like we own the place." They didn't use the service entrance. They used the front revolving doors. The lobby fell silent as they entered. The doorman gasped. Guests in glittering gowns and tuxedos parted like the Red Sea. Sal Moretti, the ghost of Brooklyn, looked like he had walked straight out of hell. He was covered in ash, his shirt red with blood, his gun holstered openly on his hip. Beside him, Claire walked with her head held high, looking like a queen of the underworld. They marched straight to the grand ballroom. The security at the doors, men loyal to the commission, stepped aside, too stunned to stop him. Sal kicked the double doors open. Inside, the gala was in full swing. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over 300 guests. On the stage, Dominic Russo was holding a microphone, a glass of champagne in his hand, laughing at a joke. The sound of the doors crashing open silenced the room. The band stopped playing. 300 heads turned. "Moretti," Russo whispered into the microphone, his face draining of color. "You're dead." Sal walked down the center aisle, Claire a step behind him. The silence was heavy, suffocating. "I apologize for the interruption," Sal's voice boomed, projecting without a microphone. But Dominic Russo forgot to mention something in his toast. Russo signaled his bodyguards. "Get him. He's armed. He's crazy." "Don't move," Sal roared, drawing his Sig Sauer. He didn't aim it at Russo. He aimed it at the ceiling and fired a single warning shot. Bang! Screams erupted, but nobody ran. They were frozen by the spectacle. 4 hours ago," Sal shouted, addressing the heads of the other families sitting at the front tables. "Russo hired the Los Diablos cartel to plant a bomb on my car in Midtown Manhattan. He brought a foreign war to our streets. He broke the truce. The murmurs started. Working with the cartels was forbidden. It brought federal heat. It was messy. "Lies!" Russo screamed, sweat beading on his forehead. "He's lost his mind! Kill him!" "I have proof," Sal yelled. He reached into his pocket, not for a weapon, but for a phone. It was Davies's phone. Rocco had recovered it from Davies's body before the warehouse exploded. It contained the texts, the voice notes, the location of Maria. This is the voice of Dominic Russo, ordering the death of a 6-year-old girl to cover his tracks. Sal held the phone up to the microphone stand on the nearest table. The audio was crackly, but unmistakable. "I don't care about the kid. Blow the car. If the mother sees it, kill her too. Just make sure Moretti burns." The room turned on Russo instantly. The other dons stood up, their expressions darkening. Russo looked around, realizing his political cover was blown. He was cornered. His eyes darted to the balcony. "Now!" Russo screamed. From the balcony, 3 figures stood up. They weren't Italian security. They were tactical shooters. The cartel backup. "Down!" Sal shoved Claire under a heavy oak table, just as the glass of the chandeliers shattered under automatic fire. Chaos erupted. Guests scrambled, overturning tables. Sal returned fire, picking off a shooter on the left balcony. But he was pinned. Russo was running toward the kitchen exit. "He's getting away!" Claire yelled, peering out. "Stay here!" Sal broke cover, sprinting across the ballroom floor, bullets chewing up the parquet behind him. He vaulted over a buffet table, sliding across the floor to intercept Russo. Russo made it to the kitchen doors, but they swung open before he could touch them. Standing there was not a cook. It was Matteo Vega, the hitman. Russo stopped, panting. "Vega, thank God! Kill him! Kill Moretti!" Vega looked at Russo. Then he looked at Sal, who had stopped 10 feet away, gun raised. Vega smiled. It was a terrifying, dead smile. "The contract was for Moretti," Vega said, his voice smooth. "But you missed a payment, Dominic. The cartel does not offer credit." Russo's eyes went wide. "I'll pay you double. I have the money in the—" Thwip. Vega didn't use a gun. He flicked his wrist, and a throwing knife buried itself in Russo's chest. Russo gasped, clutching the handle, and fell to his knees. He looked at Sal one last time, shock etched on his face, before collapsing face first onto the kitchen tiles. Sal stood there, chest heaving, his gun trained on Vega. The 2 predators locked eyes. The ballroom behind them was a cacophony of screaming civilians and shouting security. "You are a hard man to kill, Ghost," Vega said, wiping a speck of blood from his cheek. "You tried to kill my daughter," Sal said, his finger tightening on the trigger. "Business," Vega shrugged. "Nothing personal." "It became personal when she cried," Sal said. He fired. At the exact same moment, Vega threw his second knife. The impact didn't feel like a cut. It felt like a punch from a sledgehammer delivered by a ghost. Sal staggered back, his boots slipping on the sleek, polished tiles of the Plaza Hotel's kitchen. The chaos of the ballroom behind him, the screaming socialites, the shattering crystal, the stampede of the wealthy, faded into a dull, underwater roar. He looked down. The handle of the throwing knife protruded from his left side, wedged tight between his ribs, just inches from his heart. A dark, wet stain was already blossoming across his white dress shirt, competing with the soot and grime from the explosion hours earlier. 10 feet away, Matteo Vega grunted. Sal's bullet had found its mark, shattering the hitman's clavicle. The assassin spun, crashing into a stainless steel prep table, sending a cascade of copper pots clattering to the floor. Vega looked up, his face a mask of pain but devoid of fear. He pressed a hand to his bleeding shoulder, his eyes locking onto Sal's. For a moment, Amidst the steam of boiling stocks and the smell of roasted duck, the two predators assessed one another. "You missed the heart, Ghost," Vega hissed, blood coating his teeth. "I wasn't aiming for your heart," Sal wheezed, his voice wet. He tried to raise his gun for a second shot, but his arm refused to obey. The nerve damage from the knife was instantaneous and paralyzing. The gun slipped from his numb fingers, clattering uselessly across the tiles. Vega laughed, a low, gurgling sound. "Looks like we both retire tonight." Sirens began to wail outside, a deafening crescendo that vibrated through the walls. The NYPD had locked down the perimeter. Vega knew the game. He didn't finish the job. He chose survival. With a sneer, he kicked open the rear delivery door, disappearing into the rainy night, just as the SWAT team breached the ballroom entrance. Sal didn't chase him. He couldn't. His legs gave out, and he slid down the front of a refrigerator, leaving a smear of crimson on the stainless steel. The cold of the floor seeped into his bones, warring with the fire in his chest. "Sal!" The scream tore through the haze. Claire. She came sliding into the kitchen, disregarding the broken glass and the blood. She fell to her knees beside him, her hands hovering over the knife, terrified to touch it, terrified to do nothing. "Oh my God, she sobbed, ripping the hem of her ruined evening gown. She pressed the fabric around the wound, her hands shaking violently. "Stay with me, Salvatore. Look at me. Look at my eyes." Sal forced his heavy eyelids open. The world was narrowing to a tunnel, the edges turning grey. All he could see was the gas flame blue of her eyes, the same eyes as Sophie. "Sophie!" Sal rasped, blood bubbling at the corner of his lips. "Is she—" "Rocco has her," Claire cried, tears falling onto his face. "She's safe. She's safe because of you. Now you have to stay for her. Do you hear me? You don't get to save us and leave." "Claire," Sal whispered, finding a reserve of strength born of desperation. He reached up with his good hand, gripping her wrist with bruising force. "Listen to me. The police. They are here. I don't care. Let them come. We need an ambulance." "No." Sal coughed, a violent spasm that racked his body with agony. "If I live, I go to prison for life, or the commission gets me inside. There is no life for us." "Don't talk like that," she pleaded. "You have to." "Trust Rocco," Sal said, his voice fading to a thread. "Tell the police I forced you. Tell them I kidnapped you. Distance yourself. Let me die here." "I won't," Claire screamed, pressing her forehead against his chest. "I love you, Sal. I won't let you go. Hands in the air. Police!" The shout came from the kitchen doorway. 6 tactical officers swarmed in, rifles raised, blinding flashlights cutting through the gloom. "Suspect down! We have a suspect down!" one officer yelled into his radio. "We need a medic! Now!" An officer grabbed Claire, hauling her away from Sal. She fought them, kicking and screaming, her dress stained with the blood of the man she loved. "Let me go. He's dying. Help him." Sal watched them drag her away. He saw the heartbreak on her face, the terror. He wanted to tell her it would be okay, but the darkness was rising fast, like floodwater. A paramedic leaned over him, checking his pupils, shouting things Sal couldn't understand. "BP is dropping. Tension, pneumothorax. We're losing him." Sal Moretti looked at the ceiling tiles. He thought of the rain on the pavement. He thought of a little girl in a pink raincoat saying, "Wait, don't start your cars." He closed his eyes. And then, the ghost of Brooklyn was gone. 3 days later, New York Post, ghost busted, mob boss, Salvatore Moretti. Dead after Plaza hotel shootout. The Daily News, end of an era. The Moretti crime family crumbles. The city breathed a sigh of relief. The mayor gave a press conference praising the NYPD. The remaining heads of the 5 families met in back rooms to carve up Sal's territory, like vultures picking at a carcass. Dominic Russo was dead, Sal Moretti was dead, and the streets were quiet. Claire Evans was questioned for 48 hours. She stuck to the story Sal had given her. She was a hostage, dragged into his war against her will. With no evidence linking her to his operations, and with the public sympathy on her side, they let her go. She disappeared the next day. The file on Salvatore Moretti was closed, stamped, deceased, 6 months later. The hills of Tuscany do not smell of gunpowder. They smell of wild thyme, dry earth, and ripening Sangiovese grapes. The sun hits the stone villas differently here. It's warmer, softer, forgiving. On a terracotta terrace overlooking a sprawling valley near Siena, a man sat in a wicker chair. He was thinner than he used to be. His hair had more grey at the temples, and he moved with a noticeable stiffness. A thick, jagged scar ran up his left side, a souvenir of a night that felt like a lifetime ago. He wasn't wearing a Tom Ford suit. He wore linen trousers and a loose white shirt, sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms that were no longer tense with the expectation of violence. Sal, now known to his neighbors as Matteo, a quiet writer from the States, poured a glass of deep red wine. He watched the dirt road that wound its way up to the property. He wasn't waiting for a hit squad. He was waiting for the school bus. A moment later, the yellow bus creaked to a halt at the bottom of the hill. A small figure hopped out, waving frantically at the driver. "Papa!" The shout carried on the wind. Sophie ran up the hill, her backpack bouncing against her shoulders. She wasn't wearing a pink raincoat anymore. She wore a bright yellow sundress that matched the Tuscan sun. Sal stood up, leaning heavily on a cane carved from olive wood. The pain in his ribs was a constant companion, a reminder of the price of admission to this life. But he welcomed it. It meant he was alive. "Slow down, Piccola," Sal called out, a smile breaking across his face, a genuine smile, one that reached his eyes. Sophie ignored him, crashing into his legs for a hug. "I got a gold star in Italian today. Signora Ricci said my accent is perfect." "Of course it is," Sal laughed, smoothing her hair. "You have Moretti blood. We talk with our hands and our hearts." Claire stepped out from the villa's French doors, wiping flour from her hands. She looked radiant, the shadows of New York completely erased from her face. She walked over and kissed Sal on the cheek, lingering for a moment. "The bread is in the oven," she said softly. "Are you happy, Sal?" Sal looked at the view. He looked at his daughter chasing a lizard near the stone wall. He looked at the woman who had walked into hell to save him. "I lost everything, Claire," Sal said, his voice thoughtful. "The money, the power, the reputation. To the world I'm a corpse in a pauper's grave in Queens." "And?" Claire asked. "And," Sal took her hand, "I have never been richer." His burner phone, sitting on the small iron table, buzzed. It was a vibration he rarely felt anymore. Sal picked it up. The number was encrypted. "Talk to me," Sal said. "It's done, boss." Rocco's voice was gravelly, familiar, and comforting. The final loose end. Vega surfaced in Madrid looking for a new contract. We tipped off the local authorities about his location and his connection to the Plaza bombing. He decided to shoot it out with the Guardia Civil. He didn't make it. Sal let out a breath he didn't realize he had been holding. The shadow was gone. "And the family?" Sal asked. "What family?" Rocco chuckled darkly. "Without you, they turned on each other. The feds swept up the rest last week. The Moretti Empire is dust, Sal. It's all gone." "Good," Sal said. "Let it burn." "There is one last thing," Rocco added, his voice softening. "The funds from the offshore accounts. The ones you told me to liquidate. I managed to launder the last batch. It's in the trust fund for Sophie. It's enough for 3 lifetimes. You're clear, Sal. You're really out. Thank you, Rocco, for everything. When are you coming to visit? Sophie asks about Uncle Rocco every day. Soon, Rocco promised. I just need to make sure nobody is following the trail. Give the girls my love. Goodbye, brother. Sal hung up. He removed the back of the phone, took out the battery and the SIM card. He walked to the edge of the terrace, where the hill dropped off steeply into a thicket of cypress trees. He threw the phone into the abyss. He watched it disappear into the green, taking the ghost of Brooklyn with it forever. Who was that? Sophie asked, looking up from her lizard hunt. Sal turned back to his family. The sun was setting, painting the sky in violent streaks of purple and orange, but down here, in the garden, it was peaceful. Just an old friend, Sal said, abandoning his cane to pick Sophie up, wincing only slightly at the pull in his side. He called to tell me that the monsters are gone, Sophie. All of them. Even the one with the snake? She whispered. Especially him, Sal promised, kissing her forehead. No more monsters, only pasta. And maybe a dog. Sophie's eyes went wide. A puppy? Can we get a puppy? Claire laughed, the sound echoing off the villa walls. You're in trouble now, Sal. You promised. Sal Moretti looked at the two of them. He had spent his life waiting for the bullet that would end him. He never expected the love that would save him. I promised, Sal nodded, and a Moretti always keeps his word. And that is the incredible story of how a ruthless mafia boss found his humanity in the eyes of a 6-year-old girl. Salvatore Moretti started that Tuesday, thinking he owned the city, but he ended it realizing he possessed nothing of value until he found Sophie and Claire. It makes you wonder, how many of us are chasing power or money, ignoring the pink raincoats standing right in front of us, trying to save our lives? The ghost of Brooklyn died so a father could live. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And if you want more gripping stories of crime, redemption, and twists you won't see coming, make sure to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss an upload. Share this video with a friend who loves a good drama. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.